Welcome to Quantum Revenue Expansion, where we keep you motivated, inspired, and thinking big. Up-leveling into quantum revenue is a choice that we can all make in any moment, and then continue to make that choice to stay in that space each day. On this podcast, Ursula will share revenue growth strategies to reach your next level and introduce you to CEOs just like you who are making it happen. What's your next quantum leap going to be? See it, own it, and take that first step. If this is you, then Ursula wants to invite you to join us at the next 2X Intensive now. Go to salescoachnow.com/apply. You are listening to Quantum Revenue Expansion with your host, Ursula Menchez. Let's go.
Hey, everybody, and welcome back to Quantum Revenue Expansion, the podcast. So excited to have you back. And I know, as usual, you're going to love my guests. One of them, Amanda Johnson, is a 10 times guest. I don't even know, man. No, it's probably not that many, but maybe 3 or 4. And she's back again. And she's back this time with her son, Aaron Johnson. Hello to both of you and welcome, because we're going to be talking about their new book, A Religion of Story. And within that, we're talking about using story to cultivate character, unleash potential, and expand impact and income, all the things we love talking about on the show. And they've paired up, they've teamed up, mother and son. I love this so much because here's the thing. I've known Aaron since he was 3. And Amanda was a huge, huge coach, inspiration, and supporter when we were planning and trying so hard to have Luca. And I still have, I always say this, I still have the little snow globe that you gave me with the baby in it. And I look at it, it sits in my living room, and I look at it all the time. I think of you because that was that one piece I really held on to, like, oh, it can happen. There's a baby out there. So anyway, thank you as always for that. And I've watched Amanda be this amazing mom to Aaron, not a perfect mom as she shares in her books, but because thank God for that, because if I would have tried to be a perfect mom, I'd be locked up right now. So let's be honest about that. And just amazing. And now you two are writing this book, A Religion of Story. So first, I just want to say hi to both of you.
Hi.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah.
So many things we're going to talk about. I'm going to do a little bit of housekeeping on the front end, and then I'm going to introduce these 2 amazing souls. So really quickly, if you haven't yet, go to ursulainc.co/nothing. ursulainc.co, the homepage is what I'm trying to say, and grab Quantum Revenue Expansion, our masterclass. It's 3 parts. We talk about how to build your quantum revenue container, how to up-level your prices, packages, and marketing. And we show you how to collapse time and get to your goal even faster. So anyway, if you're looking for some free inspiration, it's like $1,000 value. It's free. Go there, grab it. We want to support you in your expansion right now. I think that's enough. Like, I'm just going to dive in. So let me tell you about Amanda first. So in addition to being a soul sister and dear friend and longtime book coach, book editor, really helped me with the publishing journey, all the things. It's no surprise they're starting a publishing company. I think they'll talk about that today. As the founder of True to Intention and co-founder of, there it is, Saved by Story Publishing, Amanda Johnson partners with seekers and storytellers devoted to writing truer individual and collective stories. After years of helping others question, recognize, and articulate powerful messages as a teacher and writing coach, Amanda uncovered her own true intention and began a lifelong quest to embody it. As a mama, a wife, a messenger, an entrepreneur, and a friend, Amanda is determined to empower a generation that challenges the narratives handed to them with curiosity and love, heals the stories that hold us back, and co-authors a messy, magically ever after. You can see why I love her. Amanda, I'm so glad you're here.
Thank you for having me back.
So exciting. I know. I think it's like you and Tina Pettis and probably Rebecca now. Like, you guys are all like competing, not competing, but you're leading the pack there. All right. Entrepreneurial at heart. Aaron Johnson, Amanda's son, has been both deeply involved with startups since he was a child, because he couldn't help but be, because we were all around him all the time, and mesmerized by story and the hero's journey. When he began paving his own non-traditional education and career paths and rediscovered some of his own potential through improv, debate, and mock trial competitions, he quickly realized that every system and solution needs to be unique because every person's vision, mission, and path is different. That's pretty incredible that you know that, Aaron. I'm just saying. As a project administrative manager, tech strategist, and founder of consulting and management company Caterpillar Solutions, Aaron helps entrepreneurs discover and unleash potential in themselves and their businesses using intuitive systems and soulful technology. I don't know about you guys, but it feels like you guys have no professional writers, because those are some of the best bios I've read in a long time. So Aaron, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Yeah, we did a lot of therapy around those bios, didn't we, Mom? She has a
Sure
whole
did.
thing about that.
We
So
sure
yeah,
did.
we both had recent identity crises that led us to rewriting our bios at the last minute, for sure.
Yeah, we're gonna
Yeah.
have to talk. That might be another show. I'm definitely gonna
Yeah.
have to. I gotta know all about that. That's I think we've all been there though, right? Where you wake up and you read your bio and you think, this isn't maybe exactly who I
It's
think
not
I
me
am.
anymore.
Yeah. So let's just dive in. You're here. You've completed yet another book, Amanda, and I got to be part of the last one, which was so exciting. And now together you've written A Religion of Story. So what made you to decide to collaborate on this book? Who wants to go first?
Well, I'll start because I
Okay.
think I'm the one who sparked this.
Mhm.
Aaron and I were on the way home from his amazing school one day, and we had this conversation about what he was learning in one of his classes. I think it was a human spark class. And there was this conversation about, my teacher believes that we might be able to choose immortality in my lifetime. And I was like, okay, I didn't even really care about all the details. My question was, would you do it? And he immediately said no. I mean, didn't even take a deep breath and a consideration. And when I asked him why, because I always play devil's advocate,
Yeah.
he said, Mom, every story that we have ever seen, what have we learned about time? When it ends, it makes things more meaningful, right? Like that, knowing that it's finite
Of
makes
course.
the moment more important that you're in. And also, you just don't mess with time. Like you don't mess with nature. And so I pushed and pushed and pushed on the way home to see if I could, well, what if we're being given the tools to, like, I don't know, evolve past that? Or, he's like, story has taught me. And that's what sparked this idea. It was this moment where I realized that, and a few other conversations that we were having at the time, that the way that I had engaged him with story had really shaped a worldview that was truly his, and that he was no joke about. Like, it was so firm. His compass is so clear. And I think a lot of it is because of the work that we've done in front of the TV screen. Oh my gosh. Imagine the parents who are going to gasp.
No, I think all the parents are like, oh yeah, that's me too. Like, oh, there were screens involved. That's me too.
Yeah.
So Aaron, I'm with you. I've had that, I've pondered that question, and I agree with you, Amanda, that what would be the purpose, the meaning? And we don't really have a worldview where that exists. So it's hard to even think about it, other than, we've seen movies where that's a thing, but we've seen the stories. And yet you're right. Those people are typically depressed, deranged, like they got a whole host of things going on. So Aaron, so when you had that conversation and then the book started to get sparked, tell us about your experience. What was your experience in the car in that moment as you were sharing the story with your mom?
Well, I think it was kind of like one of those moments in my life where there was this big idea that was kind of showing up in all the things I was doing and all the things I was thinking about and talking about, potential and like evolution and what it means to be human. And I was just, it was just one of those moments in time where I was just really thinking about it, and the words just popped out. And thinking about it now, it just feels like a normal conversation, to be honest. You know what I mean? It just feels like one of those normal things that we have conversations about in front of the TV all the time.
That's amazing. I wonder how many shows you two have watched together.
One of
A
our
lot.
readers asked for a compendium, and I was like, oh shoot. We
It's
do. We
another
have a
book.
list because we had to build a list in order to write the book.
Right.
But it's definitely not complete.
Yeah. So you have this story in you have this conversation in the car, and then what happened next? Like, how did it lead to this idea of like, hey, this is a book?
Well, I think that was you, Mom, again, right? So, I think it probably stewed for at least a few days. I don't know how long the time was in between, but you came with sort of this outline, pretty rough, of like how it would work, but still not really sure how, right? Because collaborative books in this way can be kind of tricky. Like, how do you format it so it's not confusing? And how are we gonna, have like insert our pieces of the puzzle together and make it coherent, and also come to, what's the goal of each chapter? And so we kind of landed on creating each chapter as a theme, a general theme that we see throughout all kinds of stories. So I think we did this in like one day. We mapped out all the stories that would be in them, like for the most part, like 80% of them. And so we have uncertainty as chapter 1. We have self-knowledge and training and camaraderie and destiny and leadership. And one more in there that is completely redemption. Thank you. Villain, tells, and redemption. Of course, it's the one that leaves my mind, right? Because that was the most. That's another story we might get to about why that chapter was so rough for me. But yeah, that's how we came to it, and we had this idea to have my mom open each chapter with her story and how her life has related to the concepts at hand in that theme.
Yeah.
And then I would respond with my own story, and then she would conclude. And then at the end of each chapter, there's kind of like it's like a grayscale section where we have certain prompts, and we like kind of break it down more methodically, and how parents can actually apply what we talked about with their children, and ask questions, related to those themes.
Yeah, so good. I loved that. I loved hearing Amanda's voice and then your voice, Erin, so that you could just get the flow of what some of those conversations were like when you were sitting in front of the TV. And at the same time, you were, Amanda, like you were teaching, right? You're teaching Erin this whole time through story. And it's such like story is who you are. Like you help people write their story, you help people create story, you've written your own story. I mean, it's just this ongoing piece. I'm curious, and this is off script, so I have a few things I definitely want to ask. This, as we're talking about this, we hear this word a lot in the world today, narrative. Like, what's the narrative? Everybody, like, that's the buzzword. Pivot was 2020. I think the buzzword of 2021 was like the narrative. And it was kind of like, it's like, well, a narrative is a story that someone's telling, right? Mm-hmm. And so, are we telling stories or are we telling truths? Like, that's the question I've asked myself a lot in the time of 2021. Like, what does it even mean to talk about the narrative? So as you were writing this book, the pandemic was still happening and there were all these stories being told, all this narrative. How did that inform and impact what you were writing?
Are you going to take that one, or do you want me to take that one? I think that impacted both of us quite a bit, right? Because we were having those conversations a lot about what was happening and how it related. And of course, the dumpster fire that was 2020 and sort of 2021 definitely impacted the writing of this book, right? Like time-wise and content-wise, for sure. Like, oh my gosh, this is happening. See how this relates here? Oh, we need to talk about kind of like this concept related to it because it's pertinent,
Well, and it seems like one of the themes is how to help our children be critical thinkers. Mm-hmm. And in a world where there's just so much happening, it feels like all the time because we're so connected on social media and the internet, and it's like happening in real time. I mean, as we're recording this, we send all our love and to Ukraine and to the Russians who are wanting to support the people of Ukraine. And when that broke out, I said to Tim, I said, this is going to be very different. This isn't the Cold War. This is everybody has a smartphone. Everybody has access to information. And if you're looking at the right channels at the right time, you can see exactly what's happening. We're seeing that play out in real time. And so now it's like humans are telling their own stories, even in short snippets through Twitter, through TikTok, through all of these things. And so I think your message it's more important than ever. Like, how do we how do we as adults, now, Aaron, you are an adult, you're in the adult world. How do our youth, right? How do they discern all this information coming at them? Amanda, like, what would you share about that? Because I know as you're writing this book, you're thinking about Aaron and how you can arm Aaron to be able to continue to be a critical thinker throughout his life.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think that moment in the car really showed me that the work that I had done with story had been a huge part of him being able to understand that there's always two sides to any story or narrative, right? And then again, at the same time, he was doing things like mock trial, where he got to play both sides of an argument. He had to, identify all of the points of each part and be persuasive enough on both sides. And then he was on the debate team having these conversations about ethical quandaries and, and journalism, right? You took like a journalism class. So all of a sudden we're starting to have conversations where the work that I did is then being refined by the process of engaging real story, right? So we had been in the world of fiction for 16, 17 years by this point, having these conversations, but all of a sudden he was starting to make out loud connections between what we had experienced on the couch together and what he was seeing in the world, and having to write essays and formulate his opinions and be a little controversial about his opinions because he didn't see things the same way everyone else did. And so a lot of what we did through the process of working on this book was a time where we got to like really celebrate the work that we had done, but take our conversations even deeper to more of the real world topics. And one of the other things that he had said that was part of this moment of, oh, we need to write this in a book was we were watching some highly politicized situation on the news. And he turned to me and he said, "Mom, did you see that lady?" And I was like, "What about her?" And he said, "That was such a villain tell." And I was like, "I'm sorry, a what?" And he said, "It was a villain tell. Did you see that snarky smirk on her face?" And I was like, nope, let's rewind it and I'll take a look. But one thing that we had done was, how do you know a villain? How do you identify them? How do you see them before, like the really charismatic ones? How about we figure out all the little tells so that we can be aware of who we're actually dealing with? And in that moment, I saw he was way more equipped and capable than I was, because I did not have that level of awareness.
Yeah.
So during this time, we were having big conversations about politics and vaccines and the narratives that were being pushed, and and his ability to look at information and vet it was like, oh my God, if someone had taught me how to do this when I was young, things would have been so much easier for me.
Yeah. Yeah. So true. And that's awesome, Aaron, that you know how to vet and you've had all that training and that experience. And I feel like it seems like we're in a time now because people have to be really transparent because there's this lot of misinformation, the other word, right? And so people are good about like, here's my source. And those who aren't might be the villains. I'm just saying, no.
I mean, maybe.
It's fun. It's funny that you would say that too about the villain tell, because Luca uses very interesting words that he's learned in story or Roblox or Minecraft or something. And we'll be talking, you forget sometimes that your 8-year-old is listening all the time. And what's fascinating though, when I listen to them though, is for our 8-year-olds in the world, it boils down to one thing. Is she a good person or a bad person? Is he a good guy or a bad guy, right? Period. Stop. And while there can be gray area, certainly, at the same time, that I feel like that's what 2021 was all about. It was like finding who could we trust? Mm-hmm. Who can we trust? And Luca would say that, well, they're a good guy or a bad guy, a good person or a bad person, or what does that mean? Or just straight up that is a bad person and they're up to bad things and they shouldn't be doing that in the world. So in tune. And And so when you think about this idea of story, like that's really what it boils down to, right? Are they a villain or are they a good guy?
Yeah. And what usually happens as a parent, or, the temptation is always to explain it or tell the actual story behind it, or try to, make our children feel safer, right? With some sort of something that we say to try to smooth it over, and just attempts to regulate their nervous system, which is a little terrified that that person looks that scary and has that much power, right?
Yeah.
Which is all good intention. But what if we just flip that into curiosity? What is it about that person that makes you think that they're bad? And let them teach us, because, I don't know about you, but my radar for villains has been pretty shoddy my entire life. Like my intuition was telling me for a long time, but I was being gaslit, and you're too sensitive, and that's not what's really happening. And so my sense of perception around this conversation in particular has been strained. And so I, out of a need, would say, Aaron, what do you mean? Right? Because I needed to learn this from him. It was so clear and certain for him. And so what if we did that? What if we just got curious? And then in the curiosity, not only are we learning, but we're teaching them to question their own perception, which is part of narrative questioning, right? And get even more metacognitive about with that reflection. So now they're not just having the awareness and the intuitive insight, but now we're giving them the tool to be able to say, why is that? And then to start creating a map. When this, Ursula, you've been around my business since its inception, you know that I now have a flag list, right? Like my red flag list. If I have people who say this, this, and this, like if they say 3 of those 10 things, I send them to someone else, because I've learned, right? Yes. And so that's what we're doing with our kids when we say, so what do you think about that? Why do you think that? And helping them to sort out. And sometimes he would say something and I would be like, oh, well, there's this other bit of information that I've heard. How does that then impact what you're thinking? So in the I don't remember what chapter it was that it landed in, but he was feeling like there was a villain, this ruckus child at school that wasn't doing what they were told, disrupting his learning environment. He's so frustrated. And so part of what I did was try to help him understand, like, there's more to the story. Maybe he's having trouble at home. Maybe he's being a bully because he's a victim at home. Maybe, like, there's so many other possibilities. Let's think about the stories that we have experienced where this is the case in what makes a villain. And so it just opens it up to more possibilities where I don't have to have the answers. Thank God.
Yeah.
But we can find them together.
And we can ask the questions. I love that's so good. I'm going to do that with Luca. Thank you. Another tip from Amanda on how to help my child become a critical thinker. So for all our listeners, it's so great, especially right now when kids might have fear, but we don't really know. Like if you don't expand the conversation, we could just put on them, project onto them what we think they're saying, but they might be saying something totally different. So really asking the question to figure out, like, what do you mean by that? How is that showing up for you? Very valuable. So I'm curious, like, Amanda, since we've been hanging out for so long, we've helped make sure my books don't die and they get out into the world, and I actually finish them, even on the days when I'm like, I can't, or I'm not going to edit it one more time and all the things. And so I guess I was thinking about you two and putting myself, Aaron, you become Luca in my story, right? Like Luca, right? So here's Ursula and Luca, as I'm thinking of Amanda and Aaron in a collaborative writing process. And it was really hard for me to imagine, probably because Luca's so young, but down the road, I'm like, wow, what would that be like? So tell us, what was that like to be writing together? And did you sit at coffee shops? Did you sit at home? Did you have coffee and chocolate chip cookies? Like, what got you through it? Because that's not easy to do. Like, I think it's much easier probably to just write by yourself and, have someone supporting you, but to do it together, to collaborate, it seems like it might be harder.
It was equal parts awesome and a pain in the butt, for sure.
That's what I figured.
So for me, when we started writing the book, we, outlines done, let's start making a prototype of what it would look like, I started approaching everything from an extremely analytical mind rather than a creative one that's integrating my personal story into each of the themes, which is what we eventually figured out was the perfect solution. But, I was in this world of really being academic, and all my essays were like, very non, personalized. They were very clean cut. This is what you get, the chapters kind of turned out to be, this is what you get from this story because of this, this, and this, and this from over here relates to this. And it wasn't putting me into the equation, just what I was thinking from a very close, magnified level of, analysis, from stories. And that worked for a minute. And then it got extremely demotivated. And I hated writing the book, and I didn't want to write it. And I didn't know what was up. And I became a real grouch about it. And my mom kept telling me, I think you should, consider putting your story in. And I was like, no, absolutely not. Absolutely not. And I think there was a lot of that around, like, actually having to work through my stories again, either subconsciously or, consciously. And eventually I did it. I started doing it now, and it just flowed. It was like boom, boom, boom. It was perfect. Everything fit into place. I was still able to bring in story examples, but it was easier through the lens of my own personal life journey relating to the stories. And of course, she'd go in and edit things and ask more questions, and I'd be mad at her. And, where you read out throughout the book, she'd pause the TV show and she'd ask me a question. I would sigh or roll my eyes or both, or, near tantrum. And then she'd ask a question, I'd answer, and it'd be good. It all worked out.
It did. And I'm laughing because I'm glad to hear that I'm not the only one that is super resistant to Amanda's amazing suggestions. And that I've also like ground my teeth and like, snarled at her like, oh, I can't add one more story. And then, I'll go and like, it used to be I have a cup of coffee and I'd sit down and I'd be like, she's so right. She's so right. Yeah, yep. I feel you on that. So you continued on, and I have to ask you, because you threw this out there before, and I don't know that we talked. You said the hardest chapter, and you were talking about story and working on yourself. The hardest chapter, and you forgot it, was redemption.
Yes.
Anything you want to share? Because I feel like this might be kind of juicy and interesting.
It's very related. So, right, redemption is related to what we were just talking about villains and villain tells. And like I was just saying, I started this out very analytical from my perspective. And so what story would I bring in to describe a villain in my life, call them a villain, and, have that perspective out there that, this person was, a villain, a bad person. Like, how do you work with that? And so the first person that came to my mind was my great-grandmother, right? Like, oh no, oh God, you're going to call her a villain and a bad person? And so I had to work through this whole thing of like, she was she was aging, she was getting dementia. We were taking care of her my entire life. We were living with her. And she wasn't always the nicest person, but she had an amazing heart. And the real her that was underneath all of her trauma and pain was the person that I really loved, right? And so having to write that was a super, super duper healing through writing experience, right? Of having to be like, she was a villain in my life at this time for a reason. She wasn't a bad person and did the best she could. And being able to write through that really allowed me to reconcile all the crap that we had to go through, with her and us leaving and moving and everything like that. And, I think that explanation was kind of scatterbrained, and it makes a lot more sense when you read it through the chapter. But yeah, that was really probably the hardest chapter for me. And that's what's in the You Can Make This Story Up. That was my first real healing through writing experience. I texted my mom in the middle of the F you and you're healing through writing BS, because I was like sitting there like crying, trying to, do this. And I really finally understood the work that she does. And, at a personal level rather than being someone looking in at all of her clients and everything. And
Oh
yeah,
yeah. Like,
that's
yeah.
how that turned out.
Not scattering at all. That was very clear, and just can definitely relate to the healing that comes through writing about the story and the opportunity to see both the villain and the hero in pretty much everybody, right? So we see that there's two sides. And I love what you said too. Like, most of us are doing the best that we can. Your grandmother, your great grandmother, Erin, yeah, she was doing the best that she can. And I remember sending one of my stories to Amanda, and she, I think you texted me, you're like, what? How have you never told me this? Because we hold on to those stories and they're painful. And then they keep us, we stay hidden, we stay invisible, and they really hold us back. And that's why I was so grateful to be part of You Can't Make This Story Up. Thanks again to, I was one of the first author in the book. I was so honored, and just reflecting on the writing journey and how much healing has come for me, going from writing Selling with Intention all the way now to Up Level Now, which is, it's just such a different book. Just fascinating to watch that transformation, because of the way, Amanda, you allow us to, you create the safe space to tell the story. So Amanda, anything else you want to add about what Erin just said?
Well, I was really grateful that we had the relationship that we had around story to navigate this. And also, I've collaborated a few times, and I feel like even when I'm working with clients, it's a collaboration, right? There's a partnership of the part that they do and the part that I do to make it sing. And so, it was hard to see him wrestling with it. It brought up my own stuff of like being in a collaboration and having someone just like ignore the time that was set on the calendar to do it. Like it was an opportunity for my own healing too, and just to allow what needed to happen. And we were in a very challenging time. 2020 and 2021 was like, we were having those other big conversations. And then there was this moment where he had stalled, like just cranky. Are you going to work on this? And he's like, nope, not right now. And I remember just thinking like, there's something else that's coming that wants to come out of this, right? Because that's something I see with all my clients. Like there are these moments of stalling, but then there's something that happens during that time that kind of shapes the direction for the person. It's really important. But, a lot of people just sit and just write through that frustration and just miss out on this other thing that needs time and space to emerge. And so during this time of like, Mom, I'm just done with this book. Like, I don't want to work on it right now. I don't know how to sort through this. And me telling him like, try your story, and him rolling his eyes and walking out of the room, which he rarely does. Rarely, like in all of his years, he doesn't really do this with me.
Wow, Erin, that's impressive.
And so in the middle of all this, he gets this idea to start his own business. He's finishing school. And so part of what we're doing is looking at like, what are the options? Do you want to look at higher education? Do you, and having those conversations around destiny and around leadership. How many times have I said to you over the years, like he was a born leader. He was like, he had all of the traits of a leader at like 3 years old. You could see that for him, but it was just a matter of waiting for him to see it and own it himself, and putting him in front of the screen and talking about what does it mean to be a great leader? Like, what are the qualities of great leadership? And so he got to the end of his high school journey and realized, he didn't want to follow the typical trajectory, and he decided to start his own business. So I thought it was really interesting that popped through while he was in this space. And then it was like another creative burst happened, right, Erin? Like the ideas for the company, and what happened for you during that time?
I don't even remember. I just feel like I left everything out of like that was not building and figuring out what the business was like. All my creative energy just went toward that for a while. But it really did help me own more of that. I think that was another sort of tougher chapter the leadership chapter, like own what, figure out, defining what leadership means, figuring out how I fit into that with personal stories. And then actually being like, oh, I am a leader in some way, you know what I mean? And relating that, like it happened at the perfect time, as usual, as we know.
And knowing how to lead, like knowing what that meant so that you could lead your own career path as well, lead your own destiny, step into what it was you felt called to. And congratulations on your business. No small feat. I know you've been surrounded by business owners, so just congratulations on that.
Thank you.
Great things. So anything else? You've had to live the lessons in this book. You've, just it happened during the pandemic. What else do you want to share about the collaborative process, and what else has come from this experience?
Well, during this time, we, pandemic, we were working on You Can't Make This Story Up as well. And so that project got stalled out because we had 20 people who were trying to regroup and figure out, right, like some of them, how they were going to survive. Some of them had to attend to health issues and, all different reasons. And so that group kind of disbanded a little bit. And so we dove deeper in, but then, there were all these projects that were coming, and I thought, I just wish that I could offer more, because I've been offering the content development and some self-publishing support for people through that process. But everything after that, like, they got to figure out on their own. Sometimes I'll help them with curriculum or building out their revenue model. And so we were doing this concurrently. Of course, this all happened at the same time, where he decided he wanted to start a business because he didn't feel comfortable with just following the normal trajectory. And he said, I want to earn and learn, basically. And I want to try things out. I want to try to see if I like this or that and not be committed and hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt in my process of trying to figure it out. Like, what if I could hang out with people who, could give me the opportunity to kind of play and see if I liked it. And at the time, I had this client who was building a network designed just for that. And she was at the point where she was overwhelmed and needed an administrative assistant. And so I was like, maybe this will work. Maybe these two things are happening. And so he dove in and, of course, used all of his tech savvy to make her business work in that way, and then became a leader on her leadership council. And so I realized that I had been building teams for other people. And so when we got to the point where You Can't Make This Story Up required a lot more than what I could do, I was like, oh, look, I already have the team around me. I have people who've been reading on this project or that project. I have the designer. I have the systems person. Like, what if we did this all more intentionally? And so that was a huge year for me of looking at expanding services and then realizing that we really want to create solutions for after the book. And I've engaged regular publishers in a few different ways, mostly when my clients end up going to other publishers, and then I get the emails that are like, what do you think of this cover? And what do you think of the interior? And, and I'm just like, oh my God, I hate it. Like, if I'm honest, like, did they read your book? Did they, there's so much that gets lost in the relationship and the message and the energy of a project that people spend, years pouring their blood, sweat, and tears into. And then they move into a system that is so transactional. So after witnessing that happen with a few of our clients last year, Aaron looked at me and was like, so when are we starting our publishing company? And I was like, well, I don't really want to figure that out, bud, but if you do.
Yeah, there was a lot of I don't know, and then the end of the conversation. And so,
I love that this was the time when Amanda was like, she was giving you the resistance and and you knew how to handle it. You're like, well, sounds like we're doing this. So
yeah, my aunt and I really strong-armed her. Yeah, for sure.
The leadership kicked in. Well, awesome. Well, congratulations, because I know the publishing company is coming together, and yeah, it seems like it's been a missing piece. I mean, you've built all the pieces over the years, and some like a natural up level, as we say around these parts. So one of the things, we talked in the beginning, the title of what we're talking about today is unleash potential and expand impact and income. Just really quickly, how does story help you do that?
Mhm. Well, I'll say the way that I've seen that recently. I mean, it's kind of like what you actually do, Mom, is like you help people figure out their message, like their story relating to their message and bringing their story to what they're doing, right? So it's more authentic and people actually figure out what they want to be doing and make money at it, which is right how that all kind of fits together. And that's kind of what I see for me, right? Is like, especially with this bio work we were just talking about that we just did. We just had identity crises and rewrote our bios, and like I'm doing like this wealth plan, for an organization that I just joined, and like trying to figure out like goals and who I am at a life level, and then at a business level, how am I bringing that into it? It's like it's all connected. Your story and what you do are not separate. Your story from your business and your work is not separate. And if they're not in alignment with each other, it's not, I feel like you're limiting yourself. I mean, everything, in expanding and growing and connections. And there's kind of like, when there's a disconnect there, it just doesn't feel right, And so like for me over the past year, business, making my business, it's a soft launch. I don't, I'm not looking to constantly have new clients and bring on team yet. Is kind of exploring what I really want to do, what I love and what I don't. And it's helping me clarify my strengths more and what I love to do more and who I am more in the process, and then building it out from there in that way, And so it's more true to me and less scary because of that.
Yeah,
for sure.
I mean, I think it's such an important key in what you're talking about is like really helping people get clear on their message, but that it's authentic, especially in this time of like, if we're not being transparent and authentic, like I feel like you're just over. It is the cancel culture. So that's a whole other conversation, but being authentic and clear so important. Amanda, anything you want to add to what Erin just shared so beautifully?
Yeah, I don't know anything more to add except that, I've had, because of the people that I've worked with, I've had the opportunity to look at the science of story and to see that story is actually the thing that attunes us the most quickly with other people. So whether it is, being a helping professional and trying to help someone in a therapeutic setting, or being a teacher in a classroom and trying to capture attention, or it's, in sales, right? Like, how do you connect with people the most quickly? And story is one of the things that gets the heart and the brain on the same page between the storyteller and the listener. And so for me, that is everything when it comes to being able to maximize your impact on the people that you're trying to serve, and also your bottom line, because the better you do that, the better the bottom line looks, right?
Yeah, so good. Like how do you get connected? So you're saying scientifically story connects you, or get related, so that people can feel like we're alike enough and interested in that story to take that next step. Well, you two, we could talk all day. I want to say thank you for being here. And I know you have something for our listeners, and you have a pretty big deal coming up on someone's birthday. So April 6th, right, is the big day. So tell us more. Who wants to share what you got going on?
I think you should take that away, Ma.
Okay. We're launching a religion of story on April 6th, which is Erin's 19th birthday.
Woo-hoo!
So it's going to be a lot of fun. And what we have done is we have put together a bunch of offerings for people who want to help us get this message out, because I've seen how most of the people in my community are these types of parents who are looking for ways to build curiosity and to cultivate character in their kids. And they are really concerned about freedoms, both, personal freedom and collective freedoms right now in the times that we're living in. And so for me, I wanted to create some sort of win-win for them. So what we did was we bundled a bunch of things together where people can jump in and do a quest to heal some of their own story, or they can take advantage of the workshop series that Aaron and I are going to do together. We're actually going to co-facilitate workshops on every theme of this book. We did the uncertainty one for someone a few years ago already. It was like a year and a half ago, I guess. And it was a blast. So we're going to do the whole workshop series. So people can go to the link that is on the page and just see if anything connects with them. And then there's also on there, they can fill out the form and get a sneak peek at the book, see the introduction in the first chapter.
Okay, cool. So that'll all be in the show notes. So A Religion of Story, you can get the special gifts below. And then if someone wants to purchase the book, when is it going to be for sale? When are we going to be buying the book? Anything you want to add there?
Yeah, April 6th. Is when we're hoping everyone will help us to get to a bestseller status. Wouldn't it be fun if Aaron was a bestseller twice by the time he turned 19? Like,
He will be.
Awesome.
Is that even a question?
I know.
It really, yeah, true.
It's going to happen. It's in the air. It's already intended. You guys have said it's already done. So
yeah.
Well, congratulations on A Religion of Story. I know it's going to make a big difference in so many lives. Thank you, Amanda, for the difference you've made in my life. Aaron, thank you for the difference you've made in my life. You don't even know probably, and just how you've inspired me to be a better parent, to Luca, and it's like you're X amount of years ahead. Don't make me do math, but you're like 10 years, going to be more than 10 years ahead of him. Right. And so it's just been an honor to be on this journey with you. So thank you for letting me be the nosy other parent that's been hanging out and observing you two as this amazing duo. So thanks for being here, and we wish you guys the best.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
You're so welcome. And to our listeners all over the world, we are so grateful for you. Thanks for hanging out with us today. If there's anything we can do for you, please email us. And the fastest way is contact@ursulainc.co, not .com, it's .co. So make sure you make that correction. And we just send love to, again, Ukraine and all of those all over the world who are struggling right now. So, all right, everybody, we'll see you next week. Take care.
Thank you for joining us today. And if you are ready to make your next quantum leap, let's do it. Ursula invites you to join us at the 2X Intensive. Go to salescoachnow.com/apply. Don't forget to leave us a review on your favorite podcast app.